السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. Alhamdulillah, inshallah ta'ala, for the weekends we'll start a series on there's a book that has just gathered reminders about the outcome of the oppressors. What was their outcome of the people that were involved in wrongdoing and oppression. And inshallah ta'ala, we're covering this because we're watching still after a year what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Palestine, what's happening in Sudan. Even before that, we saw what was happening in the Uyghur province of China. But we've seen a lot of dhulm taking place in this dunya, and it's a constant that there will always be some form of dhulm, whether extreme or whether not so extreme, but there will always be some form of dhulm in this dunya. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us just some reminders through the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ in our history gives us reminders of the fact of something that Allah Azza wa Jal reminds us of in the Quran. But oftentimes what you'll find is people that are witnessing the dhulm from a distance are more hopeless than the people that are going through the dhulm themselves. That the ones that are experiencing it are the ones that are holding on to their faith, they're calling out to Allah, their reliance is higher. But the ones that are witnessing it from afar and feeling like we can't do anything about it, they tend to become more hopeless. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, in Surah Ibrahim, He says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا عَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ إِنَّمَا يُؤَخِّرُهُمْ لِيَوْمٍ تَشْخَصُ فِيهِ الْأَبْصَارِ. That you should not think that Allah is ghafil about what these zalimeen are doing. Right? And ghafil means to be completely unaware. That, and sometimes people will complain in this manner that Allah, where are you? Are you not seeing this? Do you not know this is happening? Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows this feeling that can happen inside of a person when their expectation of resolving something is not seen. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, don't ever think that Allah is ghafil, that Allah is unaware of what these oppressors are doing. إِنَّمَا يُؤَخِّرُهُمْ لِيَوْمٍ تَشْخَصُ فِيهِ الْأَبْصَارِ. He's only delaying them for a time, for a day where their تَشْخَصُ فِيهِ الْأَبْصَارِ, meaning their eyes will stare in horror. Their eyes will stare in horror. And that description on the day of resurrection, Allah Azza wa Jalla continues to give, مُهْطِعِينَ مُقْنِعِي رُؤُوسِهِمْ. They will be rushed to their place of gathering. مُقْنِعِي رُؤُوسِهِمْ. Their heads will be raised. And you would imagine that when an oppressor is going to meet their judgment, that their eyes would be where? Like down, right? When you're looking down in shame. But He says, مُقْنِعِي رُؤُوسِهِمْ. Their heads will be forced up. And the other descriptions in the Quran of the criminals when they're gathered before Allah Azza wa Jal is that their hands will be shackled to their necks. And that's, they're going to be looking up. Like they're going to be walking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this manner with their hands shackled in this humiliated state. لا يرتد إليهم طرفهم. They will not be able to blink. Right? Meaning they're going to be staring in horror at what Allah Azza wa Jal is making them look at. They won't be even able to blink. وَأَفْئِدَتُهُمْ هَوَاء. And their hearts will be empty. Their hearts will be completely empty. Meaning, that feeling of when you get scared, that you feel like your heart drops to your belly, or that emptiness you feel inside. It's going to be a feeling of complete shock and complete horror. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us of this. And inshallah in the coming days, tomorrow we'll start with looking at some of the stories that we have in the Quran, the stories from the history that we have of people that were zalimeen and what eventually happened to them. There's a reason Allah Azza wa Jal gives us these stories. And one of the things you'll notice is that some of the oppressors, they meet their punishment very quickly. Some of them very delayed. And there's one that is the longest reigning zalim. Who is the longest reigning zalim? Fir'aun? Someone even longer than that. Shaitan. Right? Who is still continuing his reign from the time of Adam alayhi salam until the day of the last day, the reign of, and he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this. We'll talk about that more tomorrow, but what is going to be the outcome of shaitan? And then right after shaitan, we'll talk about the son of Adam alayhi salam. And you see the difference that shaitan's time is until all of basically existence. But the son of Adam alayhi salam, how quickly was his punishment, right? But Allah Azza wa Jal gives us these different examples. But the point is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is never ever ever unaware of the dhulm that is going on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to deal with it in His time. The Prophet ﷺ said, Inna Allah ta'ala la yumli lil zalim. Allah Azza wa Jal gives time to the zalim. But when He seizes them, that seizure is going to be very severe. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His seizure of the zalimeen. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give His relief to the believers. Jazakumullah khair wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.